as they are Southern California racing automobile stuff. And this was Harry Miller, to me, was the greatest racing engineer that this country's ever born. And Harry Miller he would race Indianapolis, teens, 20s, and 30s. And he would put these beautiful cars out, and everything about this, the line of the Porsche and everything, so delicate and everything. So this thing is just beautiful. I mean, the technology of a dual overhead cam, straight 4 or 8. Everybody's familiar with an Offenhauser. Offenhauser worked for Harry Miller and plagiarized his design. That's how the Offenhauser name is what it is because he was tutored by the great Harry Miller. Right there's a KRTT. That was a bike that was raced by Dan Habey. They won Harley Davidson. This is kind of a swan song for Harley Davidson. That's a dinosaur behind that fairing. That's a K model. And you got to remember that because Harley Davidson had a stranglehold on the AMA, they could cheat legally. And because it was a flathead, they could run 750 cc, whereas the Limeys and Japs had to run 500 cc, but they could use overhead valve technology. And so on the big courses, like with big heavy banks and stuff, the 200, still the flathead was a distance thoroughbred. And this is a 1924 Bay Base Indian with a flexi sidecar. The sidecar is rarer than the bike, but it's got a real Daytona frame. This double down tube, this S rear thing, that's not a public sold item. This was a race only. And then the flexi sidecar is really cool because Pop Driver came out and dominated the racing circuits with this flexi technology. Because all the Harleys, and Flexi actually had a contract with Indian for a few years before it was offered to everybody. And so they'd get in there, and these poor rigid things that could only turn one way and were stuck. And you'd lay it down and lift the jockey off. And then these things ruled because the sidecar would slough with the bike. So the jockey, the monkey, would always stay level. And so he could really lean into it, and the bike would have camber just like a real motorcycle. So you can get a real racer on there, you can lay it in the turns. He actually can get more aggressive on a right-hand turn than even a guy without a sidecar because he had no fear of tipping over. Just lay it into the turn until it smacks the frame, go into the corner with all your balls. I think in motorcycle history, what has never properly been documented, and that is that with mediocre movies like Easy Rider, and every other B movie from Wild Ones and all these goofball things, they never really captured the 1% of clubs of America. And these guys came back from World War II, and they really depended on that fraternal order. And it's funny that they came home, and it's not the Vietnam vets. I don't think really have the monopoly on being a forgotten soldier. The guys coming home from World War II, they felt just as displaced. And so when you look at this, like this vest in particular, these guys, this is from New Jersey, and I don't know anything about this, and I haven't found anybody that's ever found anything, but this is an early vest. This vest is early 50s. So you imagine a dude came back from World War II, late 40s, and was completely dysfunctional, and already flying the swastika, the devil with the swazis in the eyes. This was a bad mofo. Imagine this dude in the 50s. This isn't Fonzie. This kicks Fonzie's ass, And then there's some more clubs, a lot of the clubs that are defunct. It's funny too because, somebody might say, oh, this is the Devil's Disciples. What do you have this for? It's probably not the Devil's Disciples you're referring to. You sure it's not this Devil's Disciples? Every name that you can recognize, and there were even Hell's Angels, dozens of them. And then the Hell's Angels were monopolized and taken in, and one club ran the whole thing. Just clever names, and then eventually, 4 big clubs rose to the top. But every name under the sun was done. This basically, it constitutes a few hundred, the largest collection of club cuts on the planet. And you've got guys out there that collect vintage clothing and stuff like that. But to me, this is the greatest form of motorcycle folk art there is, because I collect racing jerseys and things like that, but these were all personalized. Every one of these has this guy's soul in it, and he sweated it and bled in it, and it's him. And some guys were flashy, some dudes were dumbed down, some guys were filthy, some guys wore this stuff till it rotted off their body, some guys died in it. And so to me, it's really heartfelt and meaningful. It's one thing to collect vintage clothing, but to collect clothing that was part of another man's psyche and lifestyle for decades. To me, it's really passionate. It's heavy. You know, it really means something. People wonder why I have these things, you know, and they're better than being in the trash can. And I've never. The nice thing about it is people think, you know, hey, aren't you worried, man? You've got this stuff. And any serious dude in a club understands that I'm paying respect to the clubs and not dishing them. And most of the clubs I have, the vast majority of them, the club hasn't existed for decades. And so this is lost history if I wouldn't be gathering this stuff up. So it's an old club bike. This is a bike I got from Noah. This bike was a Sinner's bike, but it's almost a bike that was built up probably in the Bay Area in the late 60s, early 70s. It's got like Enterprise front end, and then just follows the same kind of line. You can actually, you know, look at Arlen Ness in the late 60s and early 70s, and that's, you know, that wasn't the Arlen Ness design, that was the Bay Area design, you know. This one's heavy. That's like gorilla hide, real gorilla hide. And you know, think of that animal. You imagine that dude? Just, you know, going down the road, just a literal barbarian on the road. This would have been his lady's, her cut. It would have said property of the Sons of Hawaii. And he was actually shot at, and she died on the bike. And imagine the dude that wore that thing. Death Barons there out of Connecticut. But the crazy thing is when you think about just wild men on the road, just, you know, with no respect for authority, just complete barbarians, you're actually pretty wrong. They had a very deep respect for their club order. They might not have had a respect for you or me, but for amongst their brothers they did. And so, I mean, you try to tell me a religion or any other organized group that has rules as stiff as these. You know, these club meetings will be held Sunday at 2 p.m. in Clubhouse. A $2 fine if you show up late. Dues $2 a week. You must have a bike of 750cc or more. No fighting in the clubhouse. No dope in the clubhouse. $25 fine plus beating. You know, do you know a religion that says every member's got to be at church on Sunday, and if they don't, it's a $25 fee? You know what I mean? You can think of the most insane religion on the planet, and they got no hold over their members that requires them to get the guy sick, he didn't come. Club, you got a fine. They're fantastic folk art, and they're a piece of motorcycle and memorabilia and history that just has been absolutely ignored or explained in kind of a popcorn fashion. You know what I mean? It's the B movies suck, and they show these guys as morons, not cool dudes, you know. And what these guys have is really, really heavy. And I don't think in our society today we have the rites of passion, rites of passage that make a man a man. I don't think that we have, men need each other. Nothing homo, but we really need we need the love of another man, you know. And I'm not saying bend him over, but we really need to, you know, a man sees eye to eye with another man. And these guys knew it, and they could be as macho as possible, but they knew that I need camaraderie from another man. And it's beyond marriage, or, you know, I understand that a thing between a woman and a man is absolutely holy and special, but men need each other. And these guys knew that, you know, and they had each other's back, and it's really, really neat. And it's not just about silly criminal societies, and a lot of these guys were together because they were from a small town and they liked motorcycles and they liked each other's company. If they got in trouble, those were byproducts. They weren't the reason for the club, you know. No, I mean, I've actually, you know, and I'm not making this stuff up or giving examples. I've heard guys tell stories how these clubs absolutely saved their lives in their lowest moments. And some guy was, and I don't know who or what club or what it was, but he had a serious issue with his wife. They had to take her to the hospital at 3 in the morning. He calls up one of his club buddies. It's so serious the guy has to go to the hospital for a few days. And that club member went there, slept on the couch, got those kids fed in the morning and off to school, dressed and everything else. And there was no questions asked. He called in sick to work. Hey, work does not matter. My brother has kids that need to go to school while he's tending to his lady's needs. And it wasn't that he was doing him a favor. It was more than that. He wasn't doing him a good favor. It was expected. It was known that brother would be there for him. And we don't have that now. You know?